So welcome to our second webinar. We are so happy to be able to bring this to you once a month going forward, FST5 webinar. Again, we are Frontline Strong Together. FST5 stands for the 5 disciplines we serve throughout the state of Michigan. That is police, EMS, fire, 911 dispatch, and corrections. Those are our first responder groups that we represent through this project, in addition to their families. So today's webinar is first responders, families, and holidays. We're going to get into all things that our families and our first responders go through during the holiday times, which is quite different for most of us. So we're going to tap into that today. Just a reminder, you can reach us on our website, www.fst5.org. Also, you can give us a call on our crisis and resource line. It is 1-833-34-STRONG, 1-833-347-8766. Okay, so again, that's where you can find us. You could also use our QR codes. I'll leave it here for a little bit. We got resources, access to therapeutic providers, options, treatment options, education, training, everything we do. Our webinars, recordings will be on our website. You can find all of that there. And again, you can reach us on our crisis and resource line at 1-833-34-STRONG. All right. So we have Stephanie and Steve Faith. Today, you guys know Mike and Steve from our last webinar, but we have their wives and Mahala, who is Anna and Mike's daughter, with us today. So we're excited to have them. But Steve and Stephanie have been married for 25 years. They have 3 wonderful young men that they are proud parents of. Andy's 23. He is U.S. Air Force. We have Ryan, who is 20, who is with the Livonia PD, starting the academy in January. And Eric, who is 17, he's a high school senior, and I'm sure he's wonderful. And Steve, who just recently retired with 25 years of service. So that is Stephanie and Steve, and we'll have them introduce themselves again. Next up is Anna and Mike. Anna and Mike have been married for 22 years. They have 3 amazing kids. Mahala, who is 17, who's with us today. Thanks for joining, sweetie. We have Robert, who's 16, and Leah, who I thought we seen earlier, who's 12. And Mike will be starting his 31st year as a police officer. He also has background in fire and will soon to be retiring as well. He is a co-owner as well of To the Rescue. They do trainings. Mike, I'll let you go into that a little bit more because I don't want to misquote it. But they're amazing. They reached out to all 5 of our disciplines in the first responder community. So I will give him an opportunity to talk about To the Rescue as well. And then me. I am your FST5 program manager, clinical trauma therapist, and with Wayne Health, Department of Psychiatry, Behavioral Neurosciences. All right, so that's where we are. So first up, we are going to start with Steve and Stephanie. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
So go ahead. I did a quick introduction of you guys. Go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about you two as a couple.
Go ahead, babe.
My name is Stephanie. My husband, Steve, he is the police officer. We were high school sweethearts, married for 25 years. So we've been together for quite some time. I bring to this forum a unique perspective, as I think I had said previously, is that I'm a wife, a mother, a daughter, a granddaughter, a niece, daughter-in-law, sister-in-law to law enforcement. I think I've covered it all. So I come with a unique perspective, I think, in that we have so many law enforcement within our family.
Awesome.
Anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, today's all about the family, and I'm gonna definitely let her explore that side of this webinar. Interested to see what she has to say. But yeah, my name is Steve Faith. 25 years in law enforcement. 25 years married to what I like to call my angel, and 3 great kids.
Awesome. Anna, Mike, Anna, you want to go first?
You're up.
Oh, me. I have been with Mike for 25 years. Met him at 22. Don't know any other lifestyle. I don't know. It's been a roller coaster. I enjoy it. And I stayed at home for 15 years to try to make it as normal as possible for our children. And that's where we are today.
Awesome. Mike, I butchered the To the Rescue introduction, but I'm so glad I have you here. So go ahead, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about To the Rescue.
Yeah, my name is Mike Wierenga. I've been in the first responder world for quite a few years. I started out as a reserve police officer at 19 years old. And believe it or not, coming into January will be 31 years of playing around in that field. I was also a firefighter, medical first responder for 18 years. And that's really kind of how I met Anna, was after a call for service. I went to a restaurant that she was working at, and that's where we just started to have some dialogue, and one thing led to another and a few dates. And then she started kind of seeing what my lifestyle was like, and I don't know why or how, but she hung out with me, and here we are. And then that produced an amazing family. And part of that throughout my career, you mentioned a little bit about To the Rescue, it's a passion of mine to teach and educate our families and our loved ones on this topic. And one of the classes that we spend a lot of time on is a career survival program that spends time with the loved ones. Our classes are engaged, and the intent is to have husbands and wives and spouse, and we say about preteen and teenage children and above, because they see it and understand it, the highs and the lows and the adrenaline, exposure to trauma, and every once in a while, why mom or dad come home a different person when they left. So, and then this is my daughter Mahala, who's going to join us as well.
Hi.
Awesome. Hi, Mahala. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? No pressure.
Well, I'm a senior in high school. I'm his daughter. I play softball. Yeah, nothing too crazy. I have a job, So
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, you guys got her working. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Mhm.
All right. So let's start with Stephanie and Anna. Tell us your initial thoughts. I know when we first asked you guys to be a part of the webinar, we talked about really what are holidays like being married to a first responder. So I would love for you guys to start with that question and give me your genuine, authentic experience. Either one. Stephanie, you can go ahead.
Here, I'll go. Well, as I said, I'm unique in that I really have grown up with this lifestyle as well. So it's always been holidays we've adjusted, right? So I would say for the most part, 99% of the time we've spent actual time together on the holidays, but it's not the typical kids wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. and dad's there already to help, to unwrap presents too. It's waiting either until dad gets home after, midnight, or we're waiting or we're doing them before dad goes to work, in the evening. So there's always adjustments. We're always kind of winging it and on the fly with making those decisions and whatnot, and just making sure that it happens one way or the other.
Gotcha. Anna, what are a little bit of your experiences?
Just starting out before we were married, dating was really strange, because growing up, we had our Christmas Day, Thanksgiving was Thanksgiving Day. And I kind of got a little of that when we were dating and early married. And then when the kids came, like Stephanie said, the big word is adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're not having Christmas and Christmas Eve and Thanksgiving on those days, you adjust. And if his shift allows him to be there Christmas Eve, but not Christmas Day, then you would have your Christmas Eve. I believe one year when he had to work both Christmas and Christmas Eve, we woke the kids up at like 5 a.m. to try to have a Christmas, because that was just the rotation that he was in. But there was a lot of adjustment, and my kids, we worked very hard to make sure that they knew that was normal, even though us growing up, that was not normal for us. But I just explained, dad will be here. This is when we will, take care of it. And we really didn't emphasize on the dates, because the dates don't work. It's like Stephanie said, you adjust and you make it happen. So.
Gotcha. Mahala, how is that for you? Is that's kind of normal life? Your mom was saying, right?
Yeah, I guess I can't really say that is different because I don't know what normal is. I mean, I just kind of go with the flow, like, okay, dad works Christmas, so we do Christmas Eve, or oh, he's late Christmas Eve. And so, because it's hard for me to try to compare because I can't.
Gotcha.
That's just what it's been.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, we knew dad would come and we'd save a plate of food for him. And, you know, and you would wait for him to come and then, you know, we'd go from there. So.
Yeah, and we always alternate between, well, between families. Christmas Day is usually with my family, and Christmas Eve is with my family, and Christmas Day is with his family. And sometimes it's just a matter of driving separate cars, right? There's rarely a time that we were driving together to events because either he was already working and was going to be late, or he had to go to work. He had to leave the event early and go to work. So that's a lot of the adjusting that we did as well, is driving separately.
Well, and what she's not telling you is you know, what makes it difficult too, for the significant other of a first responder, is that you're the one getting the kids ready. You're the one that has to get all the presents ready, make sure the food, whatever you're taking, is ready and cooked. And then you're going to help clean up, or, you know, she's stuck at my family's. Well, I shouldn't say stuck, because our families are great, right? But you're stuck at your significant other's family without your significant other there. And it makes a huge difference in it. And it's hard. It's hard on the other person that's involved in this relationship. But you know, one thing that we always talk about, and you're going to hear me say it in every single webinar we have, is communication. And you know, communication is so important to also include your other family members in it, not just, you know, your sons and daughters. It's your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, and seeing if they can adapt and change sometimes and dates so that things work for, you know, the whole family. We've been lucky, like we said, we have so much. I mean, we literally bleed blue, but we've been lucky that our families have been able to make those adjustments. But, you know, once again, when you marry someone that's in law enforcement or first responder, you're marrying into this. And I think it's a big deal, and something that you definitely have to do is, before you put that ring on, you have to communicate, you know, what are your expectations on holidays? You know, how should we communicate to our family members? How do we kind of warn them about these type of things and go forth with that?
Awesome. So one of you mentioned the challenges of like not banking on the day, right? Having to adjust the times or the dates, which is, it seems like for most first responders, no matter the discipline, that's what we're hearing around the holidays. What kind of stress does that create for you and your children, spouses?
I don't know if it was just stresses, just knowing that we were missing out without trying to transfer that to the kids. Like Steve said, I mean, not that we sat down and discussed when he asked me to marry him, you know, this is what's going to happen, but just as it comes up, you just go with the flow. I mean, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
You just adjust.
Gotcha. Stephanie, would you think that it creates an additional layer of stress, the holiday time with the kids?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Especially for us, we're very close to our extended families, between his brothers and my sisters and whatnot. So we're always celebrating the holidays with them as well. And so it's not just stressful for us, but it kind of becomes stressful because I'm asking my family to adjust to his schedule. And so it's stressful in that, trying to get, you know, families to understand that as well. And thankfully they have been, you know, instead of having dinner at, you know, 5 o'clock, we're having dinner at 2 o'clock so that, you know, he can get to work on time, or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha. So Steve and Mike, tell me what holidays are as first responders. How are holidays when you're working? Either one can go first.
Personally, I think generally law enforcement officers like to work holidays because it pays more money, right? So in the end, I mean, we do this job because we love it, but we also do it because, you know, you can make a little bit of money on the side. I didn't turn down holidays, I'll be honest with you. It may have been a flaw of mine. Looking back on things here and there, you know, if I could do it all over again, I may have turned down a few holidays. But I didn't. It's just, you know, it's too late to look back, you know. But I knew I had a supportive family. I knew I had that structure there that was gonna make adjustments for me, and that made it so much easier. You know, I didn't feel guilt when, you know, I had to change times or we had to do something, because I knew in the end I was supported. So really the stressors come from the job is when typically, you know, excuse my language, but a lot of the crap and the shit, so to speak, happens on holidays, right? You get the domestics, you get shootings, you get a lot of things that don't normally happen every day. It definitely happens during the holiday season. And to clear your mind when, you know, you just came from, you know, I can go on and on about different situations, but you just came from that, and then be happy and go lucky for your family is extremely difficult transition to make. And that's one that first responders need to, you know, learn how to cope with that and try and flip the switch and become that active family member.
Gotcha. Mike, are your experiences?
Yeah,
similar?
you know, I think one of the things that's unique for us, and we've been extremely fortunate that we've always had a family, both her family and my family, work around our schedules. You know, so for years, it always worked that we were always doing Thanksgiving for many years, because the way the schedule fell for me to work Thanksgiving Day, we would go to her family on the day after. And if the Friday was a work day, it'd be that Saturday. But it worked well because we would work with our family, my mom and family, and her mom and dad and family. And we would work through that to say, okay, this is a date we're getting together. We plan it far enough out. Because one thing, fortunately, is we know what my work schedule is sometimes 6 months or a year in advance. So you know far enough to work through that. But it is unique because now if I have to work on that day or I have a get out of off duty at a certain time, it was very common for us to get late calls for service, just the way that our schedule rotation was. So then I find myself calling in and saying, hey, I'm not going to be there for another hour. You know, don't wait to open the gifts. Don't wait to serve food. Just do it. And I'll be there when I can be there. But then now she's got to add additional stresses on her to tell everybody in the family that. And then, of course, some of your family members want to know, well, why? What's he doing? What's he on? And sometimes there were calls for service. I didn't want them to know what I was on. You know, so my last few years before I took my current assignment, I was on an overdose on Christmas Eve, and I got the call about 5 minutes before I was supposed to go off duty. So I call her and tell her, hey, I'm not going to be there for a couple, 3-4 hours. And then everybody wants to know, well, what's going on? They're all enjoying this Christmas Eve party, and I'm unfortunately doing an investigation and dealing with just a horrific family's loss, and it sucked. And I'm working through this, and I go, okay, I want to get out of there to go spend time with my family. But then 3-4 hours later, I show up and I'm not in a good mood. And people don't realize the impact that has, because then they're all excited and dad's here and I don't want to deal with it, you know. And that's not every day, but holiday season can be very unique. It can, some days are very quiet. Some days there's turkeys going through front windows of houses and knives in people's backs. And other days, unfortunately, people are still struggling with a drug addiction and overdose on Christmas Eve. And then you got to deal with a whole other element of things. And it's such a wide variety of emotions that you have as a responder, but then trying to flip that switch to come home to them like nothing ever happened. And that can be very challenging.
You know, maybe I just was so used to it. I don't remember a lot of these stresses, and I just try to keep calm and not put that onto the kids. But you do what you got to do. I mean, you marry into the profession and you just learn as you go, and it is what it is. And communicate and not stress out too badly, I guess, you know.
Communication is a huge part of it, you know, and then within reason on what you're communicating to your children, depending on their age and developments, you know, where they're at in their maturity level and so on. Because, you know, Mahala oftentimes would know dad wasn't there, but maybe didn't know why. Now she's old enough to start hanging out with us and understanding what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mahala, hearing your dad talk about some of the things that he went through on like normally and especially on the holidays, does it make you worry? Or did it make you worry?
Well, because he's been off the road for like a couple years now. So when I was younger, I didn't like fully understand. But now that I'm older, I'm kind of like, oh. So now that like I kind of understand, I'm like, oh wow, like looking back now, because like that overdose Christmas Eve, I remember I was just like, I was sad. Like I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to open presents because my dad wasn't there. I was like, I wanted to wait. But then like he's coming home from like a bad call. And yeah.
You had no idea.
No, I was like, oh, dad's fine. Yeah, here.
He's just late. It's gonna be late.
Yeah.
Dad's working late again.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know that we probably have quite a few frustrating experiences that we've learned from that maybe other people can learn from us as far as that goes is with that whole situation of when are you coming
Being
home,
late, yeah.
right? Being late. I mean, I'll let you talk about it, but go ahead.
Yeah, when I get that phone call that, oh, I got, called out or, I'm going to be late. And I always want to ask him, well, how late are you going to be? When are you going to be home? And he can't always give me those times, right? I mean, he has really no idea unless he's literally just finishing writing up a report and is like, okay, I'm going to be out of here in 10 minutes. But typically, and I know he got frustrated when I would
Yes.
ask those questions. But I want to know, I'm glad that he's calling me to let me know that he's going to be late, but how late are you going to be? When can I expect you? And that's not a reality. And it was,
Took a while.
yeah, I mean, I still catch myself doing it. But yeah, I mean, I've realized over the years that puts more stress on him to finish up whatever it is that he's doing. When that was not my intention at all. My intention was just to know, when we could expect him, how much longer I have to hold off on making dinner or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I would always tell her that police work is unpredictable, and you can't say I'm going to be home at 4:00, right? It doesn't necessarily happen. And we talk about communication again. I would always try and let her know, hey, we're going, I'm gonna be late, but it's not gonna be that bad, And I would always try and update Stephanie, whenever I could. Just constantly just say, hey, 2 hours, maybe. And it was very difficult for her because at first she didn't understand, why I couldn't give her a time. And like I said, what that does is put extra stress on us as a first responder when we have a lot of things to do. And it's important to get our paperwork right. And it's important to stay focused on the job. And when you create those stressors, whether it's created by us or unintentionally, absolutely unintentionally, it can only add, to some issues with stress and things like that.
We went through a phase for a while there, and I'll let Ann explain it because she does it very well. But when our kids were at certain ages, they would ask her constantly, when's dad going to be home? And the way that she can explain it, it got to the point where it started having interaction with the kids in a way. And you explain it better than I do because you were here.
Oh my gosh, that question ranked right up there with the are we there yet?
Yeah, absolutely.
It just became that exasperating question because I didn't have an answer. And I would just get more frustrated. And I tried so hard not to get mad at them or get frustrated or lose my temper because they've asked me for the 600th time, when is dad going to be home? Because they just love their dad. They want him to be home. But you don't have a time. I mean, even with these little wonderful devices, you can send a text or you can do something. They still don't have a time, but they would constantly come up to me, like I said, for the 300th time. When is dad going to be home? What do you mean dad's not going to be home? It's almost dinner time. When is dad going to be home? Is dad home yet? Is dad on his way? And it got very frustrating. And I just try to take a deep breath and just look at their sweet little faces because they're little. They didn't understand. And just tell them when dad comes to the door, that's when dad will be home. And that's really the only answer I could give them because you don't know, especially when he had the later stop time was supposed to be, what was it, So what time were you supposed to be at? 5:15?
6:15.
6:15.
It's never happened.
Never happened. So, like Steve said, you could be writing a report that could take 4 hours, or it could be, 2 hours. You don't know. And just with their sweet little faces asking me for the millionth time, I didn't have a good answer for them, other than when he walks through the doors, when he'll be here and you see him.
Unfortunately, that became very consistent, that it was one parent always
All
doing
the time.
the notification to the children that the other parent won't be home. So then all of a sudden that creates a little bit more of a dialogue. It says mom's always telling us dad doesn't know, or mom doesn't know when dad's gonna be home. And so it creates a little bit different dialogue, that now one parent's always the bearer of bad news. And that creates some different issues.
Absolutely. Anna and Stephanie, I think last time we spoke, you guys were telling me how often it feels like you are a single parent in these marriages when it comes to the kids. Is that magnified during the holiday time?
Yes.
Sorry, my dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Yeah, I remember a time that and going to church on Sundays, there was rarely, when Steve was working midnights, was able to go with us, but was still taking the boys, and they were being boys, right? That being a little bit loud, maybe sitting in church or whatnot. And the time that the service was over, and I was like teary and getting ready to, very frustrated. And the lady in front of me just turned around and she said, I just want to let you know that you're doing a wonderful job. And that was like, I still remember this to this day. And it was, it was the holiday season with all the stresses of everything else going on, and, being alone and handling the boys all by myself for the umpteenth time on top of, all the other things that needed to be done that day. Yeah, it's hard. It's definitely hard.
That's probably why they call her for everything, and then just call me when they need money.
Yeah, well. And would you say your experiences were a little similar during this time?
Yes. I would do the midnight mass and I would do things, but my mother always helped me because I'm the oldest of the oldest with the first grandchild. So my mom was always available, but I am sad to say eventually I just stopped going because it was just too much. It was too much. I stopped going, and I didn't want to deal with it. It was easier just to stay at home and just have our own little world. And if we were to go somewhere, I would always say, don't ask me to bake anything. I will bring your utensils, cups, something to drink, simple as can be, because it was very overwhelming for me. I stopped. So.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like Steve had said too about, especially for us when we would drive separate to different locations, for family get-togethers and whatnot. I was always the one that obviously had the boys and taking them and making sure and getting them ready to get in the car and getting all the gifts together. And as Anna had said, preparing whatever dish it was that, we were asked to bring for that event, and just doing that all there. And then he just magically appears at the event like, hey, I'm here.
No grudges at all.
Yeah.
What do you remember?
Never.
There was a few year window where was it Christmas Eve day? Always you guys would go to your grandma's
My
house.
grandma's house. We
And
tried
you
to
would
fit
always,
2 in one day.
the kids would always ask, Dad, are you going? But it always seemed like there was about a 5 or 6 year window where I had to work every single one of those events. So I don't know if you guys remember, you guys always went with Mom, and I was never there when we were going to grandma's down the hill.
Great grandma's.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
So there was like a single mom event, and Dad's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, for years I called myself, even before I knew that I was a married single parent.
Right. Yeah.
And so explain to me the challenges of expressing yourself to your first responder, your frustrations. Because I know, Stephanie, you were saying like, I don't want to ask, what time are you going to be here? But how do you do that? What were those times like? And then what were some of the things you guys used to strengthen that communication?
Yeah, it's hard because, you want to make sure that everything is taken care of at home, and so that when your first responder gets home, they don't have to worry about those worries and have to deal with, other stressors of the house, right? And of the kids. And so you want to make sure that all of that is done before they get home. So to be honest, a lot of times I think I didn't share my frustrations with him. And it got to some points where all that frustration built up,
Mhm.
and then I let loose. And yeah, it's difficult because I wasn't communicating with him the way I should have been, because I thought I was protecting him, and I thought I was helping him by not sharing my frustrations, or, you know, what had happened, you know, during the event that we were at or whatnot that caused me stress, because I didn't want to add any additional stress to him that I knew he was already going through at work. So yeah, so I through the years, obviously I've learned that he can handle it. Maybe I need to sugarcoat it a little bit sometimes, but he can handle it. And he learned to deal with that too, and to accept it, and to, I think, realize that when I'm blowing up, it wasn't just that one situation, but that it was, you know, on me, that I let it get to that point and that frustration.
I think it's well, the way you just worded that is important. I think for everyone that is going to be watching this is basically what she described is the same thing that law enforcement officers do every single day, right? We keep our
You don't bring it
partners,
home.
yeah, we don't bring it home. We keep our partners guarded. And in the end, like I said, I mean, trust me, she let it build up. And just like we all do, and it ends up being a much bigger issue than what it has to, especially when now you have two people that are letting things build up, right? And it definitely causes wear and tear in a marriage. And listen, every marriage has issues. Every marriage you have to work through. It's a second job, right? And to make it work properly, you have to put in a lot of work. And yes, you definitely need to communicate. Just like a law enforcement officer does, or first responder, you have to communicate what you're feeling, how you're feeling, and what you're going through to that significant other. Because I mean, yeah, we hear it on the streets all the time. We hear people's problems, but trust me, the family issues, or what our family is going through, is so much more important to us.
Absolutely. What about Mike and Anna? How do you guys handle communicating about the frustrations and the I'm going to be late or not showing up on time conversations?
You know, I think one thing that worked for us is early on, I would just say, hey, I'm on a late call. I'll be home in an hour or 2 hours. And like Steve was saying, I can't give you a 10 minutes or 15 or 20-minute window, but I would try that, and it would never work. I say, I'm done in an hour, and 3 hours later, I'm still typing, no, I'm not done yet. Finishing the report. Sergeant just showed up, waiting on this investigation changed. So what changed for us a little bit is I'd call her and say, I'm going to be late, and I will call you when I'm in my own car. So what would happen is I'd pull into the building, I'd be in the motor pool, I'd be walking to the locker room, I'd get changed. Then you meet somebody, then there's another dialogue where the supervisor wants you, the watch commander wants you. So instead of saying I'm done on my way, I would not do that until I was physically in my own vehicle driving out of the motor pool, where I could say, hey, I'm on my way, I'm in my car. And then we knew that was a 15, 20 or 30-minute window. And that helped us a little bit, because and the kids were doing that. Dad, when you coming home? It's another hour. Well, then that turned into 2.5 hours later. So I tried to change that to give them a little bit more, hey, I'm in my car now, on my way. I don't know if that helped at all.
It did. It really reduced the, when is Dad going to be home? I had frustrations. Mine would build up, and I would blow every time we had to go somewhere. He would come home from working whatever his shifts were, and it was kind of like he would pop in and pop out. Like me and the kids, we had our constant life. He had to work, he'd be home. And those first day off, he was so tired and exhausted. So I literally would give marching orders. It's like, okay, I expect A, B, C, D, and so that he knew what to expect. The kids knew what to expect, but it almost got to be a bit much for him because he was tired, he was exhausted, but I was frustrated because he wasn't there to help me. But A, B, C, and D is what I needed to be done in order for us to get to Grandma's house. And that caused a lot of conflict as well. just trying to survive and just, like I said, just getting it all together. It was hard because I knew what I needed to do with trying to communicate to him, but he wasn't in a frame of mind to be able to do that because he was exhausted. He was tired, you know?
You guys are like well-oiled machines, the women for sure in our lives. I know I oftentimes felt like an outsider almost at times, just because she was so well-oiled and had everything together and had everything in place. And I'm just like, okay, it's Dad, I'm here, you know. And that also wears on your first responders as well. As you know, sometimes you feel like you're left out of things, and it's not done on purpose, but it's done more because, to be honest with you, they have everything together. And like I said, she was a machine throughout those years for sure.
Yeah. Mahala, as the oldest, did you try to keep things together for your younger siblings?
Yeah, especially like during, I guess this is not really holiday, but like 2 summers ago when like everything started blowing up, the defund the police, and like he was in riot gear, and like I don't know what was going on. Like I felt like, oh, I can't tell Robbie what's going on. Oh, I can't tell Leah. I have to act like everything's okay. My mom's on the couch crying, just trying to shelter them a little bit, because I feel like as the oldest, like I'm a little more mature. I try to like know what's going on, but then because I know what's going on, I'm trying to keep like Robbie and Leah like, oh, it's okay, like, oh, it's fine. So I guess even like, I guess holidays too. The tough thing about like holidays is that when everything was going down, I was still like younger. Like I didn't really understand. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my input.
So you think what you went through was normal without knowing, when Dad and the off dates and that kind of sort of stuff. You thought it was happy and you were well adjusted, right? Yes, Mom.
That makes us feel better that we didn't traumatize you. So that's
That's try to make it as normal as possible for them.
Well, and that's the unfortunate thing about the whole concept is first responders, kids, their normal's so different. You know, their normal's different than kids that have those parents that work an 8 to 5 type job, or, you know, we throw around the word normal, a normal job.
Monday through Friday,
you know,
5 to 9 or
and
whatever.
we look at our jobs as all of our behaviors are normal for this type of job, but it's a huge impact on the kids. I mean, she doesn't have friends at school that don't celebrate Christmas Eve with their families, or have to go to grandma and grandpa's or mom and dad's, where we're doing it on Christmas Eve, but now we're doing it on a Tuesday 3 days later because I'm off and everybody took a day off of work. It's just a very unique challenge, and it's a different normal for these kids.
Absolutely. Mahala, Anna, and Stephanie. Mahala picked, she mentioned a very interesting topic of the most recent years, of the stress that's been going on in the media and our society, and managing through that. I just want to give both Anna, Stephanie, and Mahala again, if you want to, an opportunity to speak on how that's been and how you've coped with being able to support your family and your first responders during that time. Or you don't have to.
No, yeah, it's been very stressful, or it especially 2 years ago. I mean, it was COVID, it was Black Lives Matter, it was the riots, it was all that stuff. And Steve was working a lot of it, like everything that happened within the city, he was responsible for, and not just responsible for, being there, protecting, but he was literally working with the organizers of those riots and talking directly with those people and trying to make them as organized as possible. And Steve's got a great way of talking to people and talking them down from making things a lot worse than what they could have been. So I know he's got that covered, but on the same sense, it was so volatile at that point that you just had no idea what would happen. So there was a lot of praying happening during that time, and a lot of not watching the news and
used to get mad at me.
Yeah, and not looking at social media. So yeah, it was difficult. And then, for at that same time, our son was deployed. So, I had that worry too, with him being out of the country, and then our middle son, wanting to become a police officer. So it's just, yeah, it's very stressful.
Very stressful.
She used to say, I just want to watch the news, she would want to see the weather.
The weather,
And
yeah.
I'm like, you can't even watch for the weather now because everything pops up. And when you're a part of something like this, like she is, or, when you're married to someone, you're a part of that lifestyle. And it doesn't matter if you see, a fellow officer hurt or hurting or shot. I mean, you feel literally every single part of that. And after a while, I couldn't stand it anymore. And I didn't want to watch, I couldn't be a part of the news anymore because the impact was so great. And I'd be lying if I didn't, show that impact on her in different ways through my stressors and what I was feeling, just between being crabby or overly tired. I mean, the hours we were working, it was crazy. The amount of hours that we were working was nonstop. And I mean, I literally felt like I was never home. So, I mean, we talk about, like
Times you slept in the command post.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about kids, as they were younger, and we talk about holidays. Those events that happened during those recent couple of years had a larger impact on law enforcement, and honestly will continue to have a huge impact on our first responders moving forward, as far as, just with the mental side of it and overcoming it and policy changes and being second guessed. It's going to continue to be a huge problem down the road. We're just at the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, as far as the families, coping with those things that are going on. I can't imagine what she goes through, what the kids go through sometimes with some of those situations.
Gotcha. Yeah. Anna, did you want to share any thoughts or feelings about that?
We're fortunate that our families supported us and we didn't really have any conflicting ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of friends that way too. But I think, Mahala, you had more conflict with people at school. And a lot of her frustrations would come home and she would actually talk to Mike about it. That was shocking that she didn't want to come to me and talk about it, but I think she felt like that I was more stressed out about it than Mike was. So that was a unique perspective, but yeah, there was a lot of frustration and anger and upset and thinking the world lost its mind,
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys, before we start to wrap up, I also want Anna to share a very interesting story with us that she's shared with us before. Stephanie, if you have one as well, but let's talk through both for Anna and Stephanie and Mahala, and then also for our first responders. What do you guys use to cope? So definitely staying off the news, social media, those type of things, open communication. What else do you use to cope?
I'm a writer. I've actually written a couple essays about my dad being a first responder and how that affects me. I'll be in class and I'll be like, oh, write about a time where it was stressful, or my college essay I actually wrote about my dad being a police officer. And that just helped me, because I feel like the hardest thing for me is I can't talk to anybody about it. Sometimes I just feel like no one can understand where I'm coming from. Because mom, she's the spouse view and I have the kid view, but none of my friends have first responders as parents. I mean, one of my recent friends does, but that I haven't been able to talk to her about because nothing been crazy, but during the COVID and everything, as hard as I feel I don't know how to deal with it or get it out. So writing was just how I put everything down.
You wrote My Hero page, what grade?
Oh yeah, I was
grade?
in 8th grade. We had a My Hero essay and I wrote about.
That is awesome.
It was wild because she wrote about things that we didn't even know she was writing about. And I came home and I said to this one over here, I go, did you talk to her about this paper? And we had no clue what she was writing about. And you came in 3rd in the state, right?
I think it was 3rd out of my whole school who did it.
School.
And then I don't know where I came in out of all the state.
And we didn't even know.
Awesome.
Just say first, no one's gonna know any different.
It was very, very powerful because there's things that she said that blew my mind.
Well, and even your debate about, I don't know.
Oh, I forgot that.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Writing is amazing. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Would you share your My Hero essay with me? Would you mind if I share that with?
Yeah, we shared, Caliber Press ran a story on it. And Law Enforcement Network and a couple other pro police social networks. So absolutely, we'll share that with you.
Awesome. That is amazing. That's a great coping skill. I didn't think she was going to say that. That's awesome. What are some other good ones? She's putting all of our other coping skills to shame. So what are some other things that you guys use to help get through these times?
Date night, man.
Date night.
Date night. That's you got to prioritize that. If there's anybody watching this, and you're married in this gig, date night doesn't always have to be about the relationship here, but a date night could go to see grandma, go see an aunt and uncle, a good friend of yours, but going to see somebody in your life that's important to you. And for us, our date night it's kept this marriage together. Some date nights have been better than others. Some date nights have been 5 minutes of sitting in the driveway trying to figure out if we want to go to a movie or not, and then we just come back in the house. Can't make a decision, but some date nights or go out to dinner and a movie. And by the time we get done with our dinner, we're so tired we come home. We don't go to a movie, but it's the time that we're together that it brings us back to why we're together, and forget the challenges of that job throughout our career, because there's been many of them. That's what works for us. I think works for me. Here, does that work for you?
Yes, it works.
But I got scared there for a minute.
That was good. So it reminds you of why you guys are together. It takes away the stressors of the job, the kids, the other family, bills, just simple things that every day just piles onto it. And you just get back and say, hey, I remember you. I kind of like you.
It was important to prioritize that we did that without our kids, and to get a sitter or to have the children, not be a part of that. And about a year and a half ago, it changed, because I'll be talking to her about, hey, Applebee's and a Home Depot date night. And this one runs and it says date night. And now she wants to go to Applebee's and Home Depot with us. So you got to find the balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Steve and Stephanie, what do you guys do?
Honestly, I think a lot of our de-stressors were our boys.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
They're
same thing.
sports.
Start talking about it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. They just watching them excel in the sports and the things that they love to do was, I think, something that we were able to do together, because we made that a priority to make sure that we were there for all of the boys' events, and we were there together. And so that was our time, just sitting, in the wrestling stands, watching the boys wrestle, or in the chairs, watching them play baseball, or watching him coach those sports that they played as well.
I was gonna say, I coach high school football, and she's actually the statistician, so she's on the sideline with me. And it's just one thing that we do as a family. My mom takes pictures at the games. The whole family, our dads will do the chain gang on the sideline sometimes. So, we have so much family support. But really, our kids have been, a common thing that really holds us together like glue, to be honest with you. And the fact that we use the sports and things like that, whether we're coaching or, she's really athletic too, so just constantly playing with the kids and things like that. Don't get me wrong, I think date night is extremely important. I don't think we really realized how important it was until maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago, to where we really focus on each other, because sometimes you get so caught up with your kids and the jobs that you lose sight of, like, how much you like each other. I'm like, it said, I really do like her, and you can't let that happen. You can't let that focus go away from, your significant other. So many times that guys would come to me and talk to me about, different issues they're having with their wife, or, my wife is crazy. I used to hear that all the time. And, I say to him, like, who do you think makes her crazy? It's us as first responders that do that, or, if you could focus all your time on your wife instead of focusing time on doing this, and this, imagine how good your relationship could be. And that's, one thing that, we've gotten so much better on, and we continue to get closer as we, basically, I'd love to tell you guys to learn from our mistakes, right? So you can truly build upon your relationship with communication and just being there for someone. And as a first responder wife, I think one of the best things she's done is she's just there. Like, it took her a while to learn, like, when I was going through some issues, she'd be like, what do you need me to do? What do you need me to do? And after a while, she realized that that was just frustrating me. And I would say, I just want you by me. And now it's just like, okay, she knows, sit on the couch, I'm gonna lay my head on her and I'm gonna chill out for 15 to 20 minutes. And she's just there for me. And that's a big deal.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. We are wrapping up, folks. If you have questions for anyone on the panel, please go ahead and put them in the chat because we are wrapping up shortly. I will have Anna and Stephanie give us some advice you would give to other spouses or family members out there. And then before that happens though, Steve, this is your was Thanksgiving your first major holiday? Retired? How was that for you?
It was wonderful.
Was it?
Yeah.
Very different? Very
Yeah.
different? We
Yeah.
wanted to know how it was for you.
So, as much as things change, they stay the same. It was more relaxing for sure. I will definitely tell you that, like, there wasn't the days leading up to it where I had to worry about different things or what have you, or worry about planning stuff. I mean, it was nice. Like, it was definitely more relaxing. I can tell you that. I definitely feel a lot more chill when it comes to, thinking about holidays or thinking about, the different stressors that I put on her or us as a family. I definitely feel like things are only gonna move up even more.
And for Stephanie, did you want to send him away at some point? Him being, or was it good having him
Yeah.
around?
No, it was great having him around. It was nice to be able to have that, normalcy, of not worrying about him being late or being able to drive together and whatnot. So yeah, no, it was good. It was very good.
Gotcha. So one of the questions is, we've heard that first responders spend most of their time off with other first responders. Is this true? And what are your thoughts about that?
I can go into that. I think that is very accurate, especially when you're younger. And it depends on what kind of shifts you have, right? So if you have 8-hour shifts, you're definitely spending more time together as first responders afterwards. If you're spending, if you have 12-hour shifts, it's less likely because you're a little more tired, but that's your friend base, right? A lot of times, I always tell my kids now that the friends you have in high school, you maybe keep 1 or 2 of them, and your friend base is going to be generally, who you work with and things like that. Your friends are constantly changing. So yeah, that's your friend base. That's who you hang out with, and that's who you generally spend most of your time with. Now, on the other part of that, I've talked about this in the last webinar, is that it's so important to include your significant other in different events that you go to, so that she becomes part of that life too, to where she's meeting other wives and things like that. And that's important because then she has someone that has a commonality with her. And I'll let her expand upon that, but there's different groups for first responder wives and things like that where they can get a part of, or a lot of times departments have a first responder page, like a Facebook page, where they can network together on with their wives. So that's something to look into if you're interested in it with your departments and things like that. But of course, we're going to spend time with our friends. That's 100% accurate. For me, it was anyways.
Mike, is that an accurate statement for you?
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm a big believer in is, and Ann and I had this conversation just the other night because we were doing a class for our new hires at the police department, and finding the balance is important, because one of the things that you find out is first responders hang out with first responders sometimes by no choice of their own because of the work schedule. You know, when I have a Monday and a Tuesday off, none of my friends outside of first responding have Monday and Tuesday off. So when I go to my buddy and say, hey, you want to go golfing on Tuesday? He goes, who golfs on Tuesday? I got to work. But if I go to my first responder buddy, we just got done working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we got a whole 20 of us that are off on Tuesday. So those relationships develop because of that work schedule, and you spend time with these people. These people save your life on occasions, and you build such a unique bond with them. So there's an important draw to that. But then on the flip side of that is oftentimes that can be a negative interaction, because now we're going to bitch about work, or we're going to bitch about something that happened, and it brings us all down. So now finding the balance to go to friends and family and a college buddy, high school buddy, a neighbor who's not a first responder, and have normal conversations like normal people. So finding the balance is a big part of that. But Anna brought up a good point just the other day, and I'll let her answer it when it comes to other first responders' wives and some of the relationships that we had.
Before we really had Facebook, they'd have get-togethers of the teams, and they would include the wives and the children and so forth. And for years, I really enjoyed, and I still have relationships with these women, but we would get together and we would talk about what we went through, where our kids were, what it was like, you know, what little Johnny or big Frankie or whatever was doing. And I don't know.
I saw your daughter's face in the side.
Actually, she probably knows who she's talking about.
But it was a comfort to have other wives that understood what we were going through. And it was also comforting to know who his teammates were. So I knew who Big Frankie was, or Little Timmy, and I've had confidence in that. But on the flip side, it was nice. We did have some couples out in our area here that we'd get together that were totally, completely oblivious to it. And it was nice to not have the pressures of asking the questions. Well, how was Mike on this call? Well, what about this, or what about that? So it was good to have the comfort to have other spouses that understood what we were going through when things hit the fan. But then it was nice to be able to have other friends where you would remove yourself completely and you didn't have to think about that stuff.
You know, Mahala even brought it up, and I'll ask her real quick, because recently you met a friend who is a police officer's child, and you had talked about the interaction that they had. So they started to hang around because you guys could relate to things a little bit differently too. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that or not, but
Yeah, it was nice because like some things, like one of the second times we were hanging out with like group of friends, and I don't remember how it went, but I just brought it up like, oh yeah, I'm glad that my dad's like not on the road anymore, because it's like scary and it's like tough. And he just like, yeah. And like some of the other stuff, it's just nice to have comfort, because I know that he understands. And I mean, we've like talked about a little bit too, like some different things, because like I'll bring up my other friends and like they'll, you know, nod and like, yeah. But I just feel like I can't go into that much detail or really share how I'm feeling, because sometimes of judgment, or sometimes I just don't think they really understand, you know? But yeah.
I think it's a hard question to answer, because I truly believe you got to find the balance. If it's all one or all the other, all of one, too much of one could be bad, and too much of the other can be bad as well. I mean, it's important to hang out with the men and women that you work with, because you have a bond that you just cannot explain to other human beings.
Even with their spouses.
Yeah, and the spouses and that support structure is huge, but sometimes you also got to remove yourself and hang out with people that don't live in that world, just to have some normalcy.
Gotcha. You guys are awesome. Well, take one more question. I know we're over, so thank everyone for being here and giving us extra of your time. I thank you so very much, and we are mindful of your time. Last question, panelists. What can friends and family do to better support or be present for married/single first responders over Christmas?
I know I always appreciated with when you know, one of my wife's friends would take her out you know, to a brewery or something that she enjoys doing, or her mother would just take her out, you know, shopping, things like that. I think that's you know, wives need to take care of themselves too, or significant others, right? I mean, it could be the other way too. They need to take time for themselves too, and debrief, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, you definitely need your time away, don't you? That's one of the biggest thing as far as being present for the first responders. I I mean, you're actually answering a question by asking it. I think being present, just
and
being present,
supportive.
yeah, is really the best way. Whether it's a phone call, whether it's phone calls go a long way, even just a text message nowadays. I mean, I'm happy when I get a text message saying, hey, how's it going? I know it's a tough time of year. How you doing? This is the anniversary of one of our guys that committed suicide a few days ago. He committed suicide last year. And you know, it's nice to talk to guys, and I talked to a few guys about it and just debrief once again about it. I mean, this is the time of year where a lot of things happen with families during Christmas, and being present is the most important thing you could ever do. So yeah, by asking your question, which was awesome, by the way, I can answer it with the same response. Just be present.
Awesome. Anna, Mike?
Well, Mike did send me away once for some self-care for 3 days away, and it ended up being 4 bottles of wine, a book, 2 containers of Oreo cookies, and a hot tub. Literally,
That's awesome.
just read, ate cookies, drank my wine, and read my book, and I was a happy camper. But for the most part, my sisters are amazing at just not even knowing when to reach out the right time. They just come and get me and meet me for coffee, or just tell me a funny story about my nieces or nephews. They just have impeccable timing. So, but Oreos and wine is pretty good too. So
I also think, just to kind of add to that too, is when we get those phone calls from our first responders that they're going to be late and we're at these family functions, I never liked the question of, well, why, kind of the same thing. Well, I don't know why he's late. Don't ask me why. Just say say, oh, I'm sorry, he's running late or whatever, and just kind of, carry on, or, what can I do for you, kind of thing, instead of asking me more questions about why he's going to be late.
They can fill your glass of wine up, right?
Right. Give me more wine. Yeah. So for me, that was kind of a frustration, but so just, don't ask why.
Gotcha. Mike, what about you?
No, I think those are great answers.
Oh,
Can I say that? No, I think that I think being there is a big part of that. I love the way that you guys explained that. It just being there for your first responder is huge. Every once in a while, I remember we went through a phase where she would just flat out say, thank you. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for coming home.
Yeah.
Thanks for your service. And that just came from my spouse to me. And for family members, just to realize that thanks goes a long way. And hey, I appreciate what you do. I know I can't see you on Christmas morning, but maybe we'll see you tomorrow, or maybe we'll see you next Tuesday, and plan those things out.
Awesome. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot more questions to this, and we may end up having to do this one again because we even went over and still people want. This is an amazing conversation, and it's a huge topic, right? Like, we want to be able to talk through and navigate through how people can talk through not only the holidays, but other stressors, spouses, children. Mahala, you've given me all kinds of good ideas, so you and I will become BFFs very soon, my dear. But I think that this has been amazing, and I want to thank you guys so much wholeheartedly for being here with us so close to the holidays. I know that this takes out of your time of planning and being here. And I just want to wish you guys the best, and thank you again for being here. We'll have more questions. I'll make sure those questions get to you guys. And for people who are on today, don't forget that we will post this webinar by the end of this week. So hopefully tomorrow, but definitely by Friday, we will post this webinar, and we will encourage you to share it with anyone that you have as a support, any of the first responders, family members. We want the world to kind of know, but we'll start with Michigan, how things work for our first responders, and some of the things that we can do as a community to support. I think often we leave our first responders out there doing this hard work on their own, and we're a community, and we want to be here for you as a community. So we are going to continue to do our best in that area. Any final words for you guys before I click us off?
Oh, thank you.
Awesome.
Happy
Thank you guys
holidays.
for being here. Happy holidays, everyone. Have a great one. We will see you guys in the new year.
I had a joke, but I don't know if everyone wants to hear it or not.
Absolutely.
All right, let's see if I can remember it. It goes like you're with a first responder when they're leery about your children sitting on Santa's lap.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, yes.
That is true.
Oh.
I don't know if it's funny or not. Let me know if it's funny in your remarks. but-
We got some laughing emojis, so it is funny. Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
See you in January.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.